In broad daylight, a drug gang operated on the streets of Worcester, unafraid and completely unconcerned with being caught. Their audacity defied everything we thought we knew about criminal organizations. No hiding in the shadows, no secret hideouts, no disguises. Just ordinary cars on ordinary streets, every move carefully calculated. What they were doing was criminal, but the way they did it was a shock to the system. In 2025, this small Midlands town became the target of a network that ran like clockwork, defying the police at every turn. No one saw it coming until it was almost too late. The first signs of this new operation started innocuously enough. Addicts in Worcester began receiving text messages that seemed unusually direct and cold. One word stood out on their phones: Nico. No full name, no address, just a name and a simple message offering drugs. It was a small clue, but it quickly sparked the curiosity of local investigators. What could be behind this? Was it the work of a new, more organized drug ring? The truth turned out to be far more complex and terrifying than they could have imagined. In a matter of months, police discovered a network running a sophisticated drug operation, stretching from Luton to Worcester. The so-called Nico line was using the county lines model, a growing threat in the UK. Instead of setting up a fixed operation in a specific location, they used a series of moving parts: cars, burner phones, and a precise, methodical schedule. Their strategy was designed to make detection nearly impossible. By the time anyone could catch up to them, they had already moved on. At the heart of this operation was a man named Hashim Malik. At first glance, he seemed like just another young man from Luton. He dressed like any other teenager: tracksuit bottoms, a baseball cap, and a nonchalant attitude. But beneath the surface, Malik was a ruthless criminal mastermind who ran a highly organized network. He was the central figure in a ring that stretched across towns, a far cry from the traditional image of a street-level drug dealer. Behind his unassuming exterior, he was orchestrating a criminal empire, controlling the flow of cocaine and crack from Luton to Worcester. Malik had one job: to keep things running smoothly, and his plan was executed with chilling precision. But Malik wasn't alone in this operation. He had help from Muhiz Jamshed, a 24-year-old who drove the vehicles that transported the drugs. Jamshed had an intimate knowledge of the motorways, understanding exactly when the roads were quiet and the best times to make the journey without raising suspicion. The trips between Luton and Worcester were methodical and well-timed, almost like a delivery service running on rails. Jamshed would drive, unload the goods, and then return, ready to do it all over again. The whole operation was built on speed, precision, and anonymity. There was no room for mistakes. In Worcester, a different group was handling the street-level sales. Max Didcot, Saud Ali, and Karim Mustati were responsible for distributing the drugs once they arrived. These men didn't run the operation. They were the faces that showed up when it was time to make a deal. They were the ones who met customers in parks, supermarket car parks, or even at their front doors, handing over small packages of cocaine and crack. It was a disarmingly normal scene, and that was exactly how the gang wanted it to appear. They had learned to blend in, to make their illegal activities look just like another part of daily life. The criminal enterprise wasn't confined to just a few people at the top. At the bottom of the chain were those who supplied the cars, rented storage spaces, and kept the entire operation running smoothly. They were far less visible, but without them, the whole system would collapse. Despite the organized nature of the operation, the individuals involved were not hardened criminals. Many had ordinary lives before being pulled into the world of drugs: students, factory workers, unemployed youths. What drew them in wasn't a love of crime, but the allure of quick money and the promise of power that came with it. What was so terrifying about this operation was its methodical nature. It wasn't a random series of events or a chaotic mess of drug deals. It was a machine that operated like clockwork. The police were left wondering how they missed it. Worcester was a quiet town, but the number of emergency room visits for cocaine and crack use was rising rapidly. Other local gangs had been dismantled, so who was taking their place so quickly? The answer came in the form of those texts. Simple, efficient, and chilling. The text messages were brief. Nico, ready stock, same price. There was no name, no personal touch, just an offer to buy drugs. And the most concerning part was how the operation was structured. The addicts receiving these messages didn't know who Nico was or where the drugs were coming from. They were simply told when and where to pick up their supplies. No need for face-to-face meetings, no real address to go to, just a text and a promise of delivery. The operation was built on this simplicity. The Nico line used burner phones, cheap, disposable devices that could be replaced at any time. These phones were used to contact buyers, arrange meetings, and make transactions. The beauty of the system was that it left almost no trace. There were no permanent locations, no safe houses to raid. The whole operation was mobile, fluid, and nearly impossible to track. For weeks, the police watched in silence, piecing together the evidence. They began to notice a disturbing pattern. The vehicles making the trips from Luton to Worcester were always the same. Old hatchbacks or faded vans with Luton plates. The delivery times were consistent, happening on specific days of the week, and the route never changed. Even the drivers were becoming predictable. They followed a schedule so regularly that it became almost like clockwork. It was this predictability that would ultimately lead to the downfall of the Nico line. The police had to be patient. They knew that if they could just get a clear picture of the operation, they could take down the entire network. The problem was, every time they thought they had enough evidence, the operation would move and the trail would go cold. The Nico line was always one step ahead. The investigation reached its climax on a grey afternoon in early July. Police knew exactly when and where the next delivery was happening. Jamshed was once again behind the wheel of the familiar van, and the drugs were ready for distribution. Didcot, Ali and Mustati were on standby in Worcester, waiting to receive the packages and distribute them to their customers. The police were ready. They had the van's location, the time, and the route. The sting was set. As the van entered Deanway, a busy street in Worcester, police teams surrounded the area. Officers moved in and chaos erupted. The van doors were flung open, and the officers shouted, "Police!" The drug dealers, startled and caught off guard, hesitated for a split second, but it was too late. The police had already surrounded them. They found the cocaine still on the seat, untouched, as the dealers were arrested. At the same time, other police teams raided the places where the drugs were being distributed. A supermarket car park, a residential area, and a flat used as a temporary storage space were all hit simultaneously. The police found burner phones, cash, drugs, and evidence that connected the Nico line to both Luton and Worcester. The network was no longer invisible. It had been brought into the light. The investigation's success lay in the precise coordination of resources. The police used a combination of surveillance, digital evidence, and forensic analysis to build their case. License plate recognition cameras and CCTV footage tracked the movements of the vehicles. The burner phones revealed who was communicating with whom, and the timing of the deliveries was carefully mapped. The evidence was irrefutable. At trial, the full extent of the Nico line was laid bare. Hashim Malik, the mastermind behind the operation, was sentenced to 9 years and 2 months. His right-hand man, Muhiz Jamshed, received 5 years and 2 months. The street-level dealers, Max Didcot received 4 years, 10 months, Saud Ali received 4 years, 2 months, and Karim Mustati received a sentence of 4 years. Several other members of the network, including Hussein Akhtar and Taylor Benford, were sentenced to lesser terms, though none of them escaped punishment. In total, 9 individuals were brought before the court, each connected to the operation in some way. The prosecution presented a damning case: 24 trips, hundreds of text messages from Nico, and the unmistakable structure of a criminal network that was running unchecked for months. For Worcester, the sentencing brought a sense of relief, but the damage had already been done. Families had been torn apart, and the town's quiet streets had become hubs for drug transactions. The Nico line had left its mark on the city, but the case was also a stark reminder of the lengths criminals would go to in order to operate undetected. The Nico line was not just a small-time gang. It was a well-run criminal enterprise, operating with military precision and exploiting the very weaknesses in the system that allowed it to thrive. Though the Nico line was broken up, the case highlighted a troubling trend. The county lines model was becoming more sophisticated, more difficult to track, and more adaptable. As soon as one line is dismantled, there's always the risk that another will rise to take its place. The question remains: how many more Nico lines are out there, operating right under our noses? In the end, Worcester regained some sense of normalcy, but the scars left by the Nico line will not fade easily. The operation may have been brought down, but the lessons learned from this case will stay with the town and with law enforcement for years to come. What do you think about the growing threat of county lines operations like the Nico line? How do you think communities can better protect themselves from these invisible networks? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Give us a like if you found this story interesting, and make sure to subscribe for more real-life investigations. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.